Last time on What's the Difference? The Shaman King edition. While the 2001 anime series was to a certain degree following along with the manga, adapting it fairly competently, recently we've entered into the We've come to America, the travel across America to find the Patch Village section of the story. And the way that that's played out over the course of this adaptation has been starkly different. Whereas in the manga and the 2021 series, which I'm not going to refer too much back to because honestly the 2021 series is adapting a lot of things pretty much verbatim, minus a few cuts they decided to do. The 2001 series has decided that instead of having the Shaman Festival before they got on the plane in order to get to America, instead it would be a private plane by Ren. The meeting with Hao felt more like, not so much like he just happened to be there, but more as though he's intentionally trying to mess with our main heroes, which he is, so it's understandable. But we've also seen a more threatening side from Hao, because when our heroes managed to run into Lilirara, a member of the Samoa tribe, who were attacked by Hao in the distant past, her tribe assumed that the entirety of the Patch were evil, but no, we find that it's simply because Hao had reincarnated into the Patch tribe and attacked the Samoa tribe because they were against Hao's mission of creating a shaman-only kingdom. They did not believe that innocent people should be wiped out simply because of the whims of one man. So in that, both our heroes and Lilirara got a little bit of clarity. Our heroes got the clarity that Hao is evil and needs to go down because his ambitions are wrong and he should not be Shaman King. And Lilirara got the clarity that it was not the Patch who were evil, no, it was Hao. And in helping Yo's group get to their realization of what they need to do, she has strengthened their resolve. Now, we had a little bit of a mix-up because the events of them encountering Lilirara in the older anime, 2001 version, that happens several episodes from where we are currently. We had the addition of the character of Chocolove, who has not been introduced at that point in the manga. And it was because of Chocolove that we were able to know, hey, we need to go and see Lilirara, instead of our heroes simply doing some research at a local library. Which I think is a pretty big shuffle to just shove that so far later down the line. So we're already encountering a bit of a jumble. But we also had the situation of Lilirara's fate. Whereas with the 2001 series, she lived on pretty much. Her spirits had been able to move on because they entrusted Yo and the gang with their mission of stopping Hao, putting an end to them, and they felt that they could move on, they no longer were necessary, and needed to keep Lilirara here to warn people about Hao. Because the Samoa felt like they had warned probably the best people capable of taking Hao down. So Lilirara actually ends up with a good future there. Unfortunately, that's not what happened in the manga or the newer anime, as Lilirara kept those Samoa spirits. She had just had a little bit more faith and a willingness to help guide people, to let them know Hao is dangerous. If you can stop him, anyone pretty much is better to become Shaman King than him. Not anyone, because some of these guys are really kind of messed up, but you get my drift. She was actually a little bit more willing to tell more people about Hao, about the history of the Samoa, and not so much warn people away, but to help guide them to the Patch Village. Unfortunately, that went against Hao's plans. He was okay with her telling Yo and his crew, cause Hao's sweet on Yo like that. But anyone else, no, that'll start causing some trouble. So Hao offs Lilirara, incinerates her with the Spirit of Fire, including the Patch Tribe ghosts that she had as well. So the Spirit of Fire is this all-consuming entity. Whether you be spirit or mortal flesh and blood, the Spirit of Fire will consume you in all ways. So Lilirara reached a tragic end in this other adaptation and the manga, and it is sad, but at the same time it is a necessary evil to show the depths of how bad Hao actually is, and to make you question exactly what is he after in doing all of this. So, with that long explanation, let's jump into what's the difference with Shaman King. For the manga, we're jumping into Volume 10, Chapter 85, The Flames of Ambition, halfway through, as half of that was the fate of Lilirara. For the 2001 anime, we've bounced back from episode 38 back to episode 27, Dowsing Evolution. And for the 2021 series, we have entered episode 14, Lyserg the Avenger. Let's jump in, shall we? So the older series mostly opens up in a way to show off the next most prominent character, and that is namely Lyserg. Honestly, when he was first introduced, I thought he was kind of cool to a certain degree. The way they animated his pendulum was pretty amazing, especially by the standards of the older anime. And he goes about just ambushing all these different shaman. These shaman were actually, in the manga and newer anime, they had come after Lilirara in order to get information on the Patch Village. But for the sake of the storytelling in the older anime, because they didn't ambush Lilirara, they end up becoming fodder that Lyserg takes down in his quest to find strong allies. It's actually a little bit of an interesting situation. Meanwhile, for the newer adaptation and the manga, you have Yo sensing the end of Lilirara, not quite knowing what exactly happened to her. Although the others feel like, oh, she would just send one of the ghosts in order to communicate with them if she was in trouble. So it's a very bittersweet situation of not really knowing the fate of Lilirara. Our heroes head to a hotel. We don't have the discussion about how their lodging is actually set up, but we do have a little bit of the camaraderie between Ren going for a little bit, as they also kind of discuss the implications behind their lodging. Although the question about the Patch Village kind of looms in the air for the most part, and they're wondering why would they allow Hao to be involved with any of this, considering who he is. They start to kind of doubt the situation with the Patch Village, and it starts to become clear that Yo is going to have to put an end to Hao. The thought of a world without shaman, or a world without strong shaman, that kind of destroys the world that Yo wants. And, he wants peace amongst all people, no matter who they are. We do kind of skip over a lot of the weird conflict going on between Horo and Ryu. And, it's funny because I've said it before, it's usually Horo who ends up picking a fight with pretty much everyone he comes across. But you get a little bit of the example of Lyserg's dowsing ability, and I feel like that's a great way to introduce him for the most part, with him dowsing and trying to find information on the Patch Village, and he comes to Lilirara's doorstep, not knowing why. All of a sudden, he's not being directed to her anymore, thinking that maybe she left, not knowing her fate as well. So it's some great setup for the most part. And so we get this ominous implication of the package that Yomei had sent to Yo. You'd think he would open it, but at the same time, that's just Yo's personality. Back with the older series, we see the Lilies observing Lyserg and wanting him to become their ally because, well, they're weak. They are nothing at all. You know, the Lily's not terrible, but not the greatest of characters. Gotta love how he's reading a knockoff brand Sherlock Holmes book as well. Honestly, I would not have as much of a problem with the Lilies if the older series just had not crammed them into every situation in order to pad out the series. They're fun and quirky enough, and I wouldn't even mind a cameo from them in the newer series. But they're just so overwhelming to the series, to the point where it's just like, come on, guys. You couldn't think of any other way in order to get Lyserg to get the information about going after Yo and the rest of the group. Again, a little bit of a funny situation where Lyserg just waves at them. Like, there's fun behind this. It's just, you're ready for the plot to kind of go forward a little bit. And then they all try to ambush him. It's just, the Lily Gang is like, you would think they'd be at least a little bit more capable, but no. And Lyserg's like, are you girls strong? Like, no. If they're ambushing you in a group, that is a definite no. He utterly disables them all within an instant. Kinky. And boom, like that. It's just like, and then starts to kind of arise some of my issue with Lyserg. Because he's portrayed as just this single-minded kind of just downer of a character for the most part. But he does have these charming moments for the most part. You know, they're not bad. It's just, I wish they would do a little bit more with it. A little bit more of them trying to find the Patch Village and all that. Continuing to look around, try to find some information. They really use the Patch Village and trying to find it as a crutch. The manga is just like, okay, we're getting this out of the way for the most part. After a certain point, it's just a matter of, hey, we have to travel this far in order to get there. With the older anime, they spin their wheels on this. Because we got 10 episodes to go. Over 10 episodes to go before they even get a clue about the Patch Village. Even in terms of the manga, it took all of, half a chapter, half a volume to actually get the information that they needed. So it really just goes to show how just close the original anime was brushing up against the plot of the manga. Because they're just like, okay, we gotta pad this out. Just stuff as much time in before we catch up. And that really was the downfall of a lot of older anime. It's just like they just could not keep the pace consistent. And especially with Shaman King, that has a very kind of fairly linear narrative. There was only so many places they could actually put filler into. And that really stands out in this stretch of episodes. And it's unfortunate because it ends up being like half the series ends up becoming filler for the older anime. And not the worst filler, but just not good filler. They do get some fun character moments, if nothing else. And that's the best thing about filler. Character moment. Oh god, yeah. The time of all of this where they would use the computers and all that. So they do end up going to a library, but they don't even encounter the character in the library from the manga. I honestly kind of like them actually just asking a librarian, because this would have been for the manga, it would have been 1999. For the anime, it was around like 2000. I think during the airing of this was 2002, so you would have had a lot of information kind of just circulating around. The internet would have been slowly becoming more and more prominent. Although I do like the implication of them just looking up the Patch Village on the internet and they end up finding nothing. It's nice use of research. And it's just like, why don't you look it up online? It's just like, bam, we tried to, and we got nothing. Nada. Burkis. And of course, we also end up cutting back to Manta and the Asakura household and all that. Honestly, they're desperately trying to keep these characters relevant to the plot as well, because, you know, with everything going on in America, we don't cut back to them that often until they start to have a role in things. But the older anime, the way it's spinning its wheels, it's not really able to do much with Anna and Manta. It just ends up being the same jokes all over again. I also kind of prefer Lyserg finding the group, not so much because he's just looking for strong allies. That is a factor, but you know, that isn't the complete reason. He's also looking for information on the Patch Village. The older anime also really kind of highlights the relationship, I guess you could say, of Ryu and Lyserg, and kind of the obsession Ryu kind of ends up developing for him, I guess you could say. Ryu is a strange character, in a manner of speaking. The newer anime and the manga, you know, they start to kind of discuss how they're going to get to Yontafe, because they have a little bit more of information on where they need to go. And then they have the establishment of who's the leader, which I do prefer in the newer anime and the manga rather than the older anime, because they set up all this weird stuff in order to make it so that Ren would accept Yo as the leader, because Yo's being very perceptive and doing certain things, and he shows an aptitude for it, but Ren should already know that, and that's why, you know, we just kind of transition into Ren saying Yo should be the leader, because they've already been through enough that Ren knows the capabilities of Yo. He knows what Yo can do and the kind of person he is, and that's why he chooses him as the leader. And then they encounter Lyserg. Oh man, manga Lyserg, especially towards the beginning, I don't care for the way he looks, just because I like it when the cloak is a little bit longer on him. I know that's such a weird nitpick, but it really feels like Hiroyuki was just not certain about what he wanted to do with the characters. And he definitely looks a lot more effeminate here, because honestly, in the adaptions, both anime adaptions, they don't make him look as androgynous as he's drawn here. Oh god, the way he draws Ryu's face. Oh! Entering into chapter 86, Dowsing Revolution. Lyserg just kind of rolls up on the crew, and he does act a little bit overly pushy, and there's no real reason for them to trust him for the most part. And we get a little bit of an explanation on dowsing. I also do like how in the manga, Yo was so quick to be like, hey, cool, awesome, and Ryu's instant shock that he's a guy and all that. The manga takes it a little bit further in the fact that Lyserg is a boy, because it's just, when Ryu's just like, what, he's a guy? Lyserg straight up drops his pants and shows his willy to him, and it's just like, no, dude, you could take your word for it. Not cool. Horohoro really rages against it having any involvement. It's just like he could be an agent of How. But Lyserg tries his best in order to kind of get them to accept him for the most part. He really tries to sell that pitch of why he should be included on the team and all that good stuff. And the fact that he was trying to find information on the Patch Village and all that. I don't care for the older anime and how he's constantly being like, I'm weak, I'm so weak. And then Ryu develops a crush on him. And it's just like, you're barking up the wrong tree here, man. And then Ryu just rolls up with them into the group. And again, just like all the other adaptions, Yo's just kind of like, oh, why not? You know, he seems like a good enough guy. Honestly, they should have just gone with Yo's decision from the beginning. But Horohoro and Ren just couldn't be okay with all of it. Oh god, no. And the older anime guys for the joke as well. Yeah, the fact that Ryu just took a young boy into the bathroom with him. It's just like, yo, Stranger danger, man, not cool. At least the situation with the lilies, at least gives them a reason to be very suspicious. I do love the more cocky nature of Lyserg. He's a little bit more playful in the manga and the newer anime, whereas in the older anime, he comes off a little too hard-edged. Like, we even have this moment in the manga that's completely kind of cut out, where he's just like, oh, my pendulum will direct to the strongest person here, and it points to him, and it's a funny moment that I really feel is sorely mistaken from the anime adaptations, both of them, because it really helps to lighten up Lyserg's character. But it also kind of starts to show just how angry and uptight Horo can be in certain situations. Because he immediately starts itching for a fight. Whereas in the older anime, it's Lyserg who picks the fight. You know, and that was always the thing that got me, because it's just like, Lyserg picks the fight in the older anime. It's just like, he always came off as such a douchebag to me. But the manga and the newer anime adaptation is just like, nah, it's Horo who picks the fight. But at the same time, in the credit to the manga especially, Lyserg is just running off at the mouth. Lyserg is being the cockiest of little shits. And so I don't blame Horo for wanting to pick a fight, at least in the manga. Because Lyserg, he's being a little shit. He's not being the annoyance that he is in the older anime, but he's just running off at the mouth to such a degree that, yeah, nobody would jive with him for the most part. So, it's really kind of muddy. And so a friggin' fight breaks out. Gotta love how they're being chased by that pendulum. Honestly, it really does make Lyserg seem like a dick in the older anime. Really, I'm starting to remember how whiny old anime Lyserg kind of was. He just kind of comes off kind of bad. Honestly, I think I just kind of preferred the cocky version of Lyserg because he didn't come off as a mopey jerk. Mopey obsessive jerk. Yes, he's obsessive in the other versions, of course. But let's be real, kind of everyone else in this series also has that cockiness. Horo had that cockiness, Ren had that cockiness, even Ryu back when we started had that cockiness of thinking he was the hottest shit around. So, I guess I'm more willing to accept that than mopiness. Older anime also kind of wants to go into a little bit of Lyserg's background immediately, instead of putting it in the correct place, but it's not bad. It's a very kind of, you already get the implications from the get-go, and it's a nice little bit of atmosphere for the most part. You'll get to show just how bitter Lyserg could be and all that. Although points deducted because Hao doesn't have his star cloak here, but that look, they really did love delving into the rage of Lyserg in the older anime. But it really does show off the weakness of mind that really kind of comes up for Lyserg later on in this fight. Yeah, and then we get a little bit of the clash. I like that Yo at least tries to stop the fight for the most part. Love it. Love the homing pendulum. Especially Lily Morphine riding in it. Just so cool. And Horo ends up in a bit of a bad situation. Love the directional capabilities that Morphine has. And then in comes Ren coming in to help out. Love it. But then they get utterly decimated. I always did appreciate that Lyserg just decimates them right out of the gate. It's not that I want to see them lose, it's just like, guys, I don't know why you thought just rolling up on this kid 2 against 1 was the right thing to do. But it really does help to show how capable Lyserg could be. But I always did kind of appreciate it a little bit more in the manga, because Lyserg didn't start the fight, but he was talking a lot of shit. But at the same time, with this, he backs up a lot of the shit he was talking. That's the thing. That's the big difference. It's just like, yeah, look, it would be one thing if he immediately got his ass kicked right after the fact. But the fact that he talked a lot of shit, said, I'm the strongest out of all of you, went in, took down both Horo and Ren, two very strong combatants, like they were nothing. Nothing. And it's just like, yes, I'm very strong. It's just like, I can't really argue with that. Like, you don't jump a dude 2-1, get your ass kicked, and be like, oh, he's still not strong. It's like, no, he just seems pretty strong to me, bro. I will say, points to the newer anime because I do love the green glow from the wire that is his oversoul for the most part. It's just such a nice visual look. And it really helps the moment to stand out in contrast to, honestly, both the manga and the older anime series. So kudos to the newer adaptation for a visually stunning look. And they get completely laid out. It is so embarrassing. Love that the whole wire was the oversoul too. And then he completely gets cocky. I do love the cockiness. Again, I love the cockiness of him in the manga and the newer anime. Because it's just like, you saw what I could do? How was that? You like it, don't you? Don't you? And Yo is having none of that shit. But in the older anime, I keep harping on this, but it really drives me crazy that he just thinks he's such hot, serious shit. It's that seriousness that I can't stand. I'm more fine with him being a cocky bastard than an overly uptight, up his own ass bastard. It really grinds me for some reason. But at the same time, he feels so much smarter here. It's just like, it was strategy. They honestly probably have as much Foryoku or more than what I have, but I was strategic. It's just like, I can't argue with that. Like, you're still a dick, but at the same time, you're a dick who could back up what you're saying. And while I will admit, Yo just kind of nutting up and being like, I'm taking my friends to the hospital. I don't give a shit what you have to say. We're done here. You hurt my friends. Yeah, they might have been a little bit in the wrong for attacking you the way they did, but you still attacked my friends. I'm having none of that shit. I'm taking them to the hospital. Get in my way. I kick your ass. On the other hand, I also kind of love I always did love in the older anime that he just simply ignores Lyserg. It's just like, I'm just gonna check on my friends. Fuck you, I have nothing to say to you. It's just like, cause that's the only thing, is just like, I feel so conflicted, cause it's just like, in one adaptation, it would make all the sense for him to be like, fuck you. And that would be the older adaptation. But he doesn't do that, he simply ignores Lyserg, which I feel is what he should do in the other adaptations in the manga. It's just like, just responding to Lyserg's snark and smarminess with nothing. Just do not indulge him, do not engage him, do nothing to the little prick. Ignore him, because he's up his own ass, and it's just like, look, you strong, they picked the fight, whatever, but I'ma take them, get them treated up, because they're my friends. You fuck with me, I fuck you. Like, that's as simple as it goes. Yeah, I do love the sweetness of all this. And then Lyserg becomes like a dick. It's just like, come on, and why aren't you, like, attending to me? Blah, 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 my needs. Like, come on, fight me. Let me see how strong you are. Let me see it. And then, Yo, it's just like, fuck this kid. And Lyserg, like a douche, goes in for the attack. Love it. Like, yes! Because he's being a smarmy prick. And I like passive-aggressive Yo. But at the same time, you get Yo from the other adaptations where it's just like telling him to fuck off. Get into chapter 87, Lyserg the Avenger. Honestly, it's hard to tell which I prefer better too. Horo being out cold, or Horo being upset about his board. Because one treats Horo like a serious character. The other treats Horo like a goddamn joke. It's such a conflicting feeling because it's just like Ono's one of my favorite characters, and man, the manga does him dirty in a lot of situations. I love his loving nature and all that. And then it's just like now he's being a little bit more of a dick. I must have strong allies. And then you get the flashback. And the older anime with the shattering of his homing pendulum and all that. God, the desperation behind Lyserg in the older anime. Don't care for it. And there, like, I like the order that they do it there. It just makes so much sense to me personally. I need to get off of this. I just can't help harping on it. God, the deranged bitterness of Lyserg is something else in the older series. And it really made me not care about him. It really portrays him as kind of a terrible character for the most part. But considering a lot of the direction that his character goes later on in the series, I feel like the older series was really trying to show off just how bad his character could be and how destructive he could be as well. I want to just skip ahead to his situation with his parents. Yeah, but that ends up being interspliced with a whole bunch of other stuff, so just go into the background and the other stuff. Lyserg's dad, the Sherlock Holmes ripoff. Always did love that coat of arms. It's such a cool look. I did love Lyserg's dad in the older animation. Well, the manga, I mean. He had this cool style to him. Kind of impressive. Lyserg's backstory is very standard, but it's also kind of cool. Like, man, look at that. I love the way the newer anime is doing his dad up. Really giving him style. Always did question why they put morphine in a literal bird cage too, and the fact that he put it all the way at the top of Big Ben too. It's just like, man, 6-year-old child shouldn't be going up there. And then it returns to his home in ruins. They also go out of the way to mask the smoldering corpses of his parents you see in the manga. I also feel like the newer anime does a better job of showing off how young Hao actually looked here too. Because the older anime, it really made him seem like he just hadn't aged in all that time. Also didn't show off little Babby's spirit of fire. It really helps to highlight the trauma that he has. Love the confidence that he has. Love that confidence. It just shatters it. Boom! It's just like, there go your hopes and dreams, motherfucker. Entering into chapter 88. Memories of Big Ben. I also kind of prefer a lot of Lyserg's thoughts being internal. Makes him seem like less of a wackadoo. Love that pose. And just look at the stark difference in all of the ways Lyserg looks in this scene. You might not be able to see it too well because I have to do stuff for copyright reasons, but the manga, he looks worried, but he's determined. The newer anime, he looks really kind of almost like he's a little bit ill, but he doesn't look too bad. But if you look at the way his face looks in the older anime, he looks like he's straight up out of his goddamn mind. Like, I don't know what was going on in the heads of the animation staff for the older anime, but they just really dive into just how broken Lyserg is. And I don't know, I just never quite got that feeling in a lot of the manga. Yeah, he had a lot of moments where he could just kind of be a dick, but he didn't feel this bad, honestly. Friggin' Lyserg's obsession. But yo, don't give a shit. You hurt my friends. I ain't about this. And now he starts to look a little bit more deranged. So I guess the animation team for the older series wasn't completely off the mark, but I feel like they drove it home a little too hard. Lyserg goes on the attack, hits the billboard, and we see it has a grapple function that allows him to fly through the air with the greatest of ease. Then he forms the mighty Big Ben. Again, I kind of prefer the way it looks in the newer anime. Just the coloration is a little bit even nicer. And honestly, it's even the older anime that kind of started it, with the portrayal of everyone's signature color being their aura. The older anime started it. Let's just be clear, the older anime started it, and I love the aesthetic, and they don't follow through with it a lot of times in the older anime until, I don't think, till much later. So, see the green coloration? It's just kinda cool. It's just kinda cool, and I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Love the shot. Oh man, seriously, the composition for both anime go at almost the same rate. They play it out almost the exact same way, and I'm just like, yes, yes, get it, anime. And then you have the breakdown that Lyserg has, just like, you're weak. And I love the explanation that Yo gives. Oh, I just hate the bitterness in Lyserg. It's just too much. I don't mind him whining and stuff, but it's just like, no, don't make him such a bitter little bitch. And then smack that kid right in the face. Again, I prefer it in the manga and newer anime. Lyserg doesn't come off as such a whiny little bitch. I'm sorry, he just comes off as such a whiny bitch in the older anime. Yes, and I love the explanation of it, just like, look, you're trying to use my friends. That was the problem. We will listen to your reasoning. Just don't be a dick about it, man. I'm sorry, with the older anime, I always question that, because it's like, he's like a deranged lunatic in the older anime, and they still let him into the group. But with the manga and the newer anime, at least, I'm just like, okay, I can kind of understand why they at least were willing to hear him out to some degree. No, older anime, I would have decked him in the face and left. I would have decked him in the face and left. It's just like, never talk to me or my friends again. Just go away. You're a freak. Go away. It really does feel like I'm hating on the older anime way too much in this situation, but it's just like, I forgot how much I didn't like the way they portray Lyserg. I forgot all about it. It's really bad. It's so bad. Now for the older anime, because he ambushed those 3 guys from before, now they're itching to come after him and get their revenge. Honestly, they're only kind of being shown off, because in the manga, you didn't really even get to see that much of their spirits. The older anime is trying to capitalize on it a little bit and be like, okay, let's at least have them do something, because they make good fodder for filler. But not to mention, it really adds on to the disdain I had for Lyserg, because, you know, it makes it seem like he brought this on himself. All these guys wanted to just take him out. And then the return of the knockoff boys. Oh man. It doesn't really make sense why they would even have that cage, too. But this was always kind of a little bit of a sweet moment. You know, the story of how Lyserg eventually got morphine. I always appreciate this introduction to his father more than the way it's introduced in the manga and newer anime, because he comes off as kind of a jerk at first, but he's not. It really is a sweet moment, the way they portray all of this. Also love the way his mom looks in the older anime too. They cut out in both adaptions a lot of them being in the hospital and Horohoro's continued bitterness up until he actually hears Lyserg's story. A little bit of the camaraderie too. Oh man, I do love Horohoro just immediately coming around. Dude really does wear his emotions on his sleeve. Ooh, it's chapter 89, Family Resemblance. I like Lyserg. I love this moment of him just coming around to what he did wrong and understanding. And then he offers to pay and all that. I kind of prefer him giving them cash rather than a blank check. let's give them cash, dude. Like, they don't have IDs. How are they gonna cash this check? And I like that it's even Ren who kind of pushes to have him join up as well. Despite his desire to kind of, not force them into his battle or anything like that. It's just like, well, we're going after Hao too. And I always felt like Ren saw a lot of himself in Lyserg as well. Yeah, and I really do appreciate all the information that they have that they also pass on to Lyserg. And having him retell his origin at the diner isn't bad. Although, again, this little kid going around all of London trying to figure out where his father had hid the key to Morphine's cage. I really did love Lyserg's backstory, though. Mostly just because of how caring his parents actually are. Not to mention, Lyserg is one of the few characters in this series that has such a tragic backstory. The menace that is Hao. And they make it look like Hao hasn't aged at all. I do appreciate this moment of Lyserg's dad just kind of telling Hao off for the most part. And the fact that he was actually willing to try to arrest Hao. And bam, he's able to free Morphine. And it's just like, yeah, I'm going home, see my mommy and daddy. And Hao's just like, your parents are dead. It's so messed up. It's just right up there murdering them parents. Oh, Spirit of Fire. Oh, there we go. Baby Spirit of Fire. Jeez, those images. Intense. See, and now they're kind of playing into the darker direction that Lyserg kind of went in. Man, the anime really loved playing this up. Followers of Hao. And of course, these two softies are touched by his story. God, I hate how unshaken by all of this Lyserg is that they care so much. Oh yeah, I'm in episode 28 of the 2001 series, Lyserg the Revenger. I probably should have said that earlier, but it just trying to get through this because it starts to plod. Like, we're really starting to get in the thick of filler. Not to mention, at this point, unlike in the manga and newer anime, Ren is very reluctant to accept Lyserg into the group. And I'm just like, no, I like Ren just being like, okay, whatever. Like, you're just building this unnecessary tension. But at the same time, I get where he's coming from. More allies means more problems. I really feel like the older anime was really trying to keep that Vegeta-like edge to Ren as best they could, where they could. Despite the fact that Ren had kind of become Dragon Ball Super Vegeta, I guess you could say at this point. I'm sorry, this is the best analogy I can come up with, because it really is the archetype that Ren portrays. A lot of the beliefs and the avenues that Ren is going through are the same ones that you later see with Vegeta later on in the Dragon Ball series, once you hit Dragon Ball Super. I prefer them sharing information with Lyserg in order to fully understand where they're coming from or what they need to think about. And also, Lyserg's questioning of the involvement between Yo and Hao. Just like, he really shows off his detective skills here, in this moment. But you don't really get it so much in the older anime. And then Lyserg comes to the realization. It's just like he knows what he saw. Something between Yo and Hao. There's some kind of connection there. And I love how desperate he is to try to come to that realization, of course. And we gotta have the filler characters. And freaking Ryu's pining over Millie. It's just like, how old is Millie anyway? Ryu, you're like in your 20s at this point. At least I think he is. And Lyserg trying to confront his issues. And then he's stubbornly trying not to involve anyone in his problems. They're hooking up a more modern to the time telephone too, complete with fax machine. Like, man, they are showing this series age. A little bit of jokes between them. Of course, Lyserg is being as rude as possible to the people he kicked the ass of, despite the fact that they weren't even coming after you. It's So they just teamed up in order to kick your ass. And then bam, somehow they managed to catch Morphine in her cage. I've always felt it was weird that Hao was like apparently keeping tabs on Lyserg, despite the fact that he really just seemed to discard Lyserg for the most part. And 3 grown men beating on a kid. I get it, he beat your asses before. Not cool. And then the relationship between the 3 guys starts breaking down. Like, no honor amongst thieves. And then Ren decided to get involved. Look at the way they portray these 3 guys. And then Ren's deciding to do it the old-fashioned way. Spirit Ball mode, integrate. And that's a classic right there. I love it. Just having him just take on 3 guys at once. I guess they just wanted to have Ren be a badass for a little bit. And everyone shows up to the fight. I guess they wanted to build up the camaraderie that would come from Horo and friggin' Ren with Lyserg. Really show Lyserg the error of his ways. Yes, build the bond of friendship. Show them the power of friendship. Teach Lyserg the error of his ways and his ways of thinking. Ryu to the rescue, coming in like a boss. I love it. I love at least seeing them throw down a little bit against a few more shamans. It's not the worst. Friggin' theme music playing in the background. Boom! Big Ben, bitch! Big Ben, wire of friendship. Oh my god. So cheesy. And then Hao arrives just to punish them. It's just like, you died in the manga, now you die here too. And just like that, they're annihilated. Didn't even pause. And so with Lyserg, they're able to get a little bit more of a more perfect direction. At least get the general area. Millie. The sweeter moments from her are actually pretty nice. Helping to build the more positive vibe for him. And Manta's still doing voiceovers. Such a weird direction they chose to go in with all of that. I hate that they didn't even include the whole situation between Yo and Amidamaru where they talk about, reaffirming Yo's belief that nobody bad can see ghosts. And how he feels that everyone has a reason for the things that they do. It reinforces the positive outlook that Yo has right up until the end. And even in Midamaru questioning if there's good in Hao as well. And Yo's not ignorant to anything that Hao has done. He knows that Hao has been bad news in the past. Yes, establish that lore. Do it! And now they get to start to bring Anna into everything. Her hair is so much wilder in the newer anime than in the manga. So we have the descent inside this hidden chamber, and we end up finding out a little bit of a truth behind Hao. That he is a member of the Asagura family, which you already know if you've seen the first episode. Now, at this point, everything kind of takes a completely different turn. Because the older anime completely shifts gears. Because there's plot elements that center on Horo that gets completely ignored by the anime. But there's also a backstory for Ryu that actually does somewhat get adapted and doesn't get adapted. And there's a fight with one of Hao's followers that completely gets reworked as well. So the older anime just goes balls to the wall in a completely different direction. Introducing characters earlier than they're supposed to. Certain things happen later than they're supposed to. Everything just takes a complete shift. So that's the point that you have to kind of figure out. Do you want them to get to the actual shaman fight fairly early? Or do you want them to kind of dick around on their journey across America? Because that's the direction the original anime took. And for me, that was always the point where I started to kind of lose a little bit of interest. Because I wanted to get to the shaman fight, the actual shaman fight. And a lot of the events that take place at the actual shaman fight are completely rewritten to be taking place just as they're making their way to the shaman fight. So those are the major core gripes I have with the adaptation. If you're fine with that, good on you. You have fun with that. But at the same time, it's going to be a pain trying to trace where all of that goes as well. So I hope you will join me on that headache-inducing journey. I'm interested to see if any changes are made to the newer anime, and if so, what changes. And I'm also interested to see a few things that were completely left out or rewritten for the older anime actually finally get adapted, because it really is a key moment for Horo Horo coming up that is such a shame that it's glossed over. Not to mention, there's also a little bit of development for Anna that takes place over the course of several episodes instead of being centralized all in one. Because next episode of the anime, it's an Anna story. It's all about Anna and developing something that she uses later down the line. And the older anime did not do anything with that to a prominent degree. So tell me your thoughts on which version you liked best. Did you like the portrayal of Lyserg in which version? Manga, older anime, or newer anime? My most preferred version really kind of is the newer anime, because his look is the most solidified we'd see it, and a lot of the things that the manga does with Lyserg look the best in the newer anime. And his personality is just the most, assuming that he would be a full-on friend to Yo and the group. I feel like, yes, it makes sense for him to join the group. Older anime, no, not so much. He feels like, no, he's too confrontational. It's such a bad place. But considering a lot of the stuff that happens to Lyserg later down the line, it also makes sense why they went in that direction. Because there's a reason why Lyserg sometimes kind of gets ignored the further you go into the older anime series. And by ignored, I mostly mean as a friend of Yo. There's a situation and a fallout with Lyserg that really becomes the crux of Lyserg's character. And it'll be interesting once we get there. But again, tell me your thoughts and favorite version of Shaman King in the comment section below. What did you like about each version? What did you dislike about each version? And if you liked this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more Shaman King. What's the difference? And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.